Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Andrew. Today I'm joined once again by Premier League injury analyst and fantasy football guru Ben Dinnery. Great to have you back on, Ben, and I see that you may have had a cheeky little win this week.
It's great to be back, first and foremost, Andrew. And yes, I'm currently sitting in the money.
Nice.
I'm around 190th. We've obviously still have a game to play this evening, but I had a sneaky look to any of those teams. They haven't got much involvement. I think the Sun could, if Sun was happening to bang, that might hurt. But I shouldn't drop down too many places. So I'll finish with a nice little a tidy sum in my back pocket.
I think you did well, didn't you, on Liverpool and Brighton, because Brighton's defence in the last four. I mean, they'd only let in one goal in the last four, and it proved again. It proved again the same last night, and Liverpool left very frustrated. Do you see? What do you think is going on at Liverpool, Ben? It's a strange one.
It is difficult, and I don't think it's as easy to be able to just specifically pinpoint one particular aspect.
Yeah.
Injuries definitely come into play. The dynamics of the team. Sadio Mane is out of that. I mean, Liverpool have been so heavily reliant on the likes of Trent and Robbo, and then your three attacking, your Salah, your Firmino, and your Manes. And, all five haven't quite been at the races this season.
That's right.
They haven't been on that mark. And, when you're losing, you can maybe carry one or two. You can't carry three or four or even five, as it has been in some games.
Absolutely.
I mean, underlying stats have still been great for Liverpool. They're showing that they are bubbling under the surface, but they're maybe not just as clinical. They're maybe not just carrying that element of luck. Maybe other teams are carrying that. And also, it's a shift in dynamic as well in terms of, one, your mindset. You're going from, chasing the title to actually we're champions now. And teams are arriving against Liverpool and they're up in their game. And Liverpool are also coming off the back of two, big seasons. Like I say, for them to chase City down as they did 2 years ago, and then to carry the league forward as they did last year. That cumulative effect of just, the intensity and the energy and the focus required to play at that level, not only in the league, but in Europe as well. It's no surprise that eventually, that there's aspects of that will begin to catch up.
I agree. And obviously this weekend now we've got the really interesting matchup of Man City versus Liverpool. I mean, we'll touch on it a little bit later, but you would usually expect that to be, a real kind of high intensity, kind of really tight match. But at the moment, I can only see one winner because only one team is tight at the back and only one team is doing well at front as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But like I say, we'll touch on that later. And just finally on your boys on the tune. So they put in a great performance against Everton on the weekend, and then back down to earth against Palace midweek. What do you think is going on there?
Look, we've got obviously a new assistant manager that's come in to work alongside Steve Bruce. Whether or not he was able to have an impact on it down at Goodison Park within that short space of time, I still think his experience and his views maybe certainly contributed to the how Steve Bruce wants to set up his team. There has been an almost a shift internally about how Newcastle have been set up, trying to move away from that defensive mindset to going out there and maybe putting teams on the front foot, having a little bit of a higher press, because we just don't have the personnel in defence to be able to soak up that. I mean, all Newcastle's strengths are, going forward. The Wilsons, the Almirons, the Frasers, the San Maxims. You've got Shelvey who can pick a pass. Opening 45 minutes against Crystal Palace, you could argue that, we maybe should have been a little bit more clinical. And had we have took those chances, it changes the complexion of the game. Second half, Palace shut up shop. They've got a lead to hold on to. And, they're a difficult unit to break down. Roy Hodgson always got them well drilled, well versed. Look, we are what we are. We're not going to we are capable of putting the odd decent performance out there. But inherently, well, we're just an average team, really, and we're going to have results. I mean, I think I've said this before, outside of that top 6 to 8, there isn't a great deal of difference between any of those remaining, 12, 13 or 14 sides. And I think anybody on their day is more than capable of taking points off each other.
Callum Wilson, what a signing he is, mate. He is an absolutely fantastic footballer. And he could have scored hat-trick on the weekend. He missed a couple. Obviously, he scored the goal, missed a couple. But yeah, I think at the moment he's leading my line this weekend for my fan team monster. But we'll touch on our teams a little bit later. So for our YouTube watchers, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. So for our feature tournament for this podcast video is the Gameweek 23 Weekly Monster, which has a prize pool this week of a massive €75,000. We'll be running through the game week's applicable fixtures and sharing our entries with you. So our watching listeners are aware what it is. It's very similar to the free hit chip in Fantasy Premier League, where you basically pick the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. So very briefly, you build a squad of 11 players. You've got to include at least one goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 2 midfielders and a forward. You can select it to a maximum of 3 players from any one Premier League team. You have a £105 million budget to build your 11-man team. You can make limited changes to your team until the first match kicks off on Saturday. We'll run through the applicable fixture of the tournament in a moment. You pick a captain every week and your captain scores double points. If your captain doesn't start, your vice captain would play and gets the double points in their place. Players are priced in accordance with match odds. And Man City, as we mentioned, are very, very cheap this week. We'll certainly be looking at a couple of their assets, even though they play Liverpool. And safety net applies if a player does not start. He will be automatically replaced, if possible, by a cheaper player from the same club and position. So for those watching on YouTube, the point scoring matrix is now on screen. As you can see, it's very similar to the season-long fan team game and indeed the Fantasy Premier League game. Ben, just in terms of the league, do we think Man City have got it sewn up at this point, or is it a bit too early to tell?
It's hard to look past City. I jokingly made an off-the-cuff remark before the season started. It is documented somewhere, I can't remember where, but I actually said Liverpool would finish outside of the top 3.
Oh, wow.
I never in a million years thought that it was a possibility, and I would have loved to put a bet on it. But the form, ultimately, if you're keeping clean sheets, clean sheets are going to win your titles. And there ain't nobody defending better than City at this moment in time. So it looks as if it's heading back to the Etihad.
And they've still got a chance every week to rest their players. I mean, last night they rested Foden as an example, right? So he's going to be fresh on the weekend. They can just afford to rotate because their squad is just so good in it. And the system that they are playing, both in defence and attack, it just doesn't give the opposition at the moment a peep, does it? Have they conceded like 1 goal in their last 8 or 9 games? Something ridiculous like that?
I think it's is it 12 clean sheets in 14? I think it is.
I think that probably sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unreal. But yeah, like you say, the difficulty is trying to nail down which of those players in the back line Pep is going to. Obviously the advantage with fan team is that we have that safety net option in place. We've seen Laporte, coming for and Kyle Walker drop out. We've seen. For me, Diaz seems to be the only one that's despite the form of Cancelo and Stones. But yeah, look, I'm all over that City defence.
Me too. In every format, and they're just absolutely smashing it week on week, right? It's absolutely superb. And going forward as well now, I think Sterling looked a lot sharper last night. Obviously, he got the goal, but I thought he could have had a couple as well. And Gundogan just looks on a different level at the moment to everyone else. I mean, what a footballer! So there are 3 full-round weekly monster tournaments every game week. This week, one has a prize pool of €12,500 with a guaranteed first prize of €1,500, which you can enter for as little as €2. For this week, there's also a free entry to this competition for new fan team users. If you do fancy seeing all the fuss is about fan team, head to fanteam.com, register and play that tournament for free with a chance of winning €1,500. Why not? There is a high roller tournament if you want to play for big money. But our feature tournament for this podcast is a €75,000 prize pool game, a guaranteed €7,500 first prize for just a €20 entry. The teams we pick can be used across all Monster tournaments. Just a reminder to enter all FanTeam contests. You must be over 18 and be gambleaware.org. So this game week we have 9 Premier League matches for this competition, which are Newcastle versus Southampton. So big game there up in the northeast. Burnley play Brighton. Fulham against West Ham. Man United play Everton again. That should be a really good game. Spurs against a pretty hapless West Brom at the moment. Mind you, Spurs haven't exactly been pulling up trees either, have they? We got Wolves versus Leicester, the big one then. Liverpool versus Man City, which is the 4:30 game GMT Sunday. Sheffield United play Chelsea, and then Leeds play Crystal Palace on the Monday evening. So it is worth noting that the early Aston Villa versus Arsenal match on the Saturday is not applicable for this contest. So what stands out for you, Ben, when looking at the fixtures?
It seems as if we're saying the same things every time I come on. It looks really, really difficult to pick some. And look, when we have a look at my 11 for this particular game week, I'm sure there will be a lot of, I'm not going to say controversy is not the right word, but there'll be a lot of disagreement in the players that I maybe have picked and those that I've left out. Look, I'm really, in the main, I'm staying away from the big one.
Okay.
I know what the form says. I know what, if you were to look at it on paper, but for me, it's just going to, Liverpool aren't going to lie down and take anything easy. If anything, they're still going to want to put a marker in the sand. Even if they internally that they probably believe that the title race is over, they'll still want to show the world that they can go out and do a job as champions against the champions elect. And they really want to put a big performance out there. The price wise, some great players in there. I just, like I say, I don't know who to go. City would quite happily take a 0-0 draw with that one. We discussed it on the last one. I think it was United and Arsenal, and we said, look, this could be a closely fought contest, and that wouldn't surprise me. So I like that, and also my boys. I think we've got a great opportunity. I'm not going to jump on the 9-0 drubbing midweek. That's anomaly. I mean, I've been sweet on Southampton since the beginning of Project Restart. I just think injuries and suspensions now are really all just coming. It's creating a perfect storm for teams playing against them, and if Newcastle hope to get anything, and move out of that bottom half, then these are the opportunities that Steve Bruce has to set up his team to go out and grab 3 points. So, look, I mean, we'll have plenty to talk about, and there'll be plenty of discussion around May 11. But that's just my thoughts on the first couple of fixtures there.
Yeah, I completely agree on Newcastle and Southampton. So obviously they started a couple of academy players midweek. One had the red, obviously, Jankovic, which I felt sorry for him a little bit because it was clearly just pure adrenaline, right? He was just so excited. First start for Southampton at Old Trafford, first challenge of the game. He obviously, he just had an adrenaline rush, right? So I feel sorry for him there, but it didn't leave his team in a good spot. But obviously, Bednarek got the red as well, so they're going to be without Bednarek and Vestergaard on the weekend, so they're going to have a very, very makeshift defence. And just the way, I think that Newcastle are playing as well. I think they're playing with a much, much better intensity. I think their 11 on the day will probably be better than Southampton's 11, again, just purely down to, injuries and suspensions and things as well. So, I'm targeting that one as well. Man United Everton will be interesting because Everton have, are kind of up and down. They obviously lost at home to Newcastle last weekend, and let's be honest, they were awful. But to go to Leeds and win was a really good result for Everton. Midweek was Man United off the back of a 9-0, so that's going to be an interesting one. Spurs and West Brom, obviously we get to watch Spurs this evening. They're not the same without Kane, but West Brom just keep conceding. They concede so many goals that I think that Spurs could score a couple of goals there, even without Harry Kane, even though Kane is rumoured to be back maybe towards back end of next week, isn't he? Sheffield United and Chelsea, for me, is an interesting one, because I think that Sheffield United have been defending very, very, very well, particularly against the bigger teams, and Chelsea, haven't quite hit their stride yet, maybe. So I'm kind of looking at that one again for maybe a couple of cheap options. And Leeds and Palace, Leeds are, they're just kind of all out attack, right? And Palace are quite inconsistent, as we've seen. But let's have a look then at our teams. I've got your team now on screen, Ben. Are you able to run through it for our podcast listeners, along with your rationale? The first thing I see is a block back line. Can you talk us through it?
Well, so I echo your sentiments with regards to Sheffield United. I don't think it's very small margins in the top flight. Yeah. They're not greatly different to how they defended and played last season. Like I say, maybe just a couple of injuries and they've been a little bit unfortunate. Ramsdale, he's responded to his critics in the right way in recent games, playing quite well. So he's my keeper. Of course, he comes in at a great price point. And, while then there are no guarantees of clean sheets, there's a couple of save points potentially locked in there. Yeah. Yes, now my block of 3. I tend to do this, and I have been doing this for quite a while now, is getting low budget defenders in. Just, it's hard enough picking 1 clean sheet, never mind 2 or 3 or even 4 if you're picking 4 defenders from various different teams. And look, Brighton coming off the back of 2 outstanding results, Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool.
Absolutely.
Do you know what? Graham Potter will be going to Turf Moor, and he will gladly now snap your hand off for a point, for a 0-0. Sean Dyche, you know how they're going to set up. It's a solid 4-4-2. They're going to make it hard. They're going to be in your face, and there ain't going to be many chances within that game. So again, I've focused on that Burnley backline. Yes, because I honestly believe there's a strong chance of a clean sheet, and also the expenditure in there that allows me to look elsewhere and improve me picks for that offensive, that front line attack.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Your rationale is absolutely sound, and Brighton must be absolutely exhausted because they've played so well against those boys. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think a point of Burnley would be good for them. Although, I would say that I think Mopai, Trossard, Gross have looked decent, but obviously Burnley, especially with Pope in goals, and Mia's come back, and since Mia's been back from injury for Burnley, they've looked much better at the back. Obviously, no one stands much of a chance against Man City in the midweek. Obviously, when they got beat, but what are those prices? What is it? Me 6.8, Tarkowski 6.6. Yeah. Loughton 6.5. I think it's a really good shout, Ben. And on to midfield then.
Yeah, now this is where I've been able to splash a little bit of cash. Look, I've taken a bit of a punt on Jess Lingard.
What a great shout. What a great shout. I didn't even think about it. What a great shout.
I'm purely following, you're following the form from his debut. I cast my mind back to the way Ross Barkley arrived at Aston Villa, came off the back of very little minutes, had his couple of little niggling injury problems. Dean Smith threw him back in and he was a revelation. He enjoying his football again. One eye maybe on Euros. Jess Lingard would probably think that, if I have a strong second half of the season, and there's a couple of injuries in that England squad, I could even end up at the Euros. So he's a player that's got something to play for. He's got his appetite. He's got to prove his critics wrong. He'll be, maybe what he lacks in that little bit of match sharpness, that little bit of fitness, will get him through these first couple of games just on pure adrenaline, on enthusiasm, on excitement. In West Ham have been in very decent nick. They have. Yeah. So we've already heard about Mikel Antonio talking about how Lingard wanted the ball, who linked up the play with him and Ben Rama. So he's in there, and at 8.1, I think he's a bit of a steal, to be honest. I think, yeah. The other guy, I went Rafinha at Leeds. Argue, the signing of the season for them. Producing, since the turn of the year, been producing attacking outputs, great. There was a slight concern heading into the game against Everton, and while Leeds, weren't firing on all cylinders, Raphinha still manages to get himself on the score sheet. So when you're looking at Leeds attacking assets, for me, it's only really him or Bamford as the two sort of realistic, go-to people. And I'm not a Bamford fan, so it was Raphinha in that respect, and I like him. In midfield, and we mentioned it before, I'm not jumping on the Southampton bandwagon just because of what happened midweek. It's more the bigger picture, and the fact that, again, an already decimated squad now has to deal with another 2 suspended players. Romeo's going to be a big miss in there. We've had James Ward-Prowse, who's had to play at right back, so that's taken him out the centre of the park. Diallo also there. So it's going to be difficult for them. Steve Bruce, I hope, maybe with the guidance of Graham Jones, will be saying, we go out there and attack the jugular. We get an early goal against this Southampton team, and and the confidence is down again. It's a case of, not again. So that's what I'm hoping for in that respect. And with Almiron, the only slight concern would be, if Steve Bruce decides to maybe shuffle things up. We have Alan Saint-Maxim, who hasn't been starting games yet, but he has been training normally, and he has been getting minutes from the bench. I would hope, and I would think it would be Ryan Fraser would be the player to make way if Saint-Maxim was to start. So if I was going down that route and maybe thinking Fraser or Saint-Maxim, I think if you start Saint-Maxim and he doesn't, the safety net would bring Fraser in. If you went the other way around, that wouldn't work because of the price point. So maybe just something for those who are following, just to be aware of. In midfield, now I said I wasn't really going to go, big on the City and Liverpool game, but how can you not have Mohamed Salah at
under 10 million? Yeah,
9.9 million. I mean, I'm not bothered who he's playing, what he's doing, what form he's in. If you're picking Mo Salah up at under 10 million, he's in my team all day, every day. And regardless of team form, regardless of his form, he's the type of player, he can go out and he can turn it on against any opposition in the world. He's a game changer. And you've got the added bonus of, penalties and spot kicks, which in this day and age, you have to give some serious consideration to. So I really like Mo. And my 5th midfield spot, so I've went with a 3-5-2. At the minute, we're on Heung-min Son. Obviously, Tottenham still have a game to go, so there could be other factors that may come into play after this podcast. But you touched upon it yourself. Baggies are shipping goals for fun, and we all like to think that Big Sam will create a solid defensive unit, make it hard for the opposition teams to break down. But I think we're almost at the point now where West Brom cannot sit back and maybe hope just to pinch a point. They've tried that against some of the league's lesser teams. They've come away with 2 points out of 9. So really, West Brom have to go out there and try to get a result. They're going to have to start picking up 3 points, and however unlikely that case may be. And I think that's going to create opportunities and space for Tottenham.
Yeah, I can see West Brom scoring maybe, and giving it a good go, because Spurs at the back haven't been that good, and their form generally has been that good. But you would just think that Son's just he's world class. I think we mentioned it previously. I can see Spurs conceding, but I can also see Son doing well in that fixture, because as you say, West Brom are going to have to come out and play a little bit, leave Son so much room, and he's just so good. His finishing, his pace, everything about him. If he gets a sniff of an opportunity, I can see him scoring a goal or two. So
there's a lot of conversations around will Son step up in the absence of Harry Kane, and look, Tottenham weren't great against Brighton. But I did have a look at some previous data around Son when Kane was absent, and I looked at particularly successful take-ons, chances created, and almost all of these metrics in terms of an attacking sense were doubled against the season average during that that period of time when Harry Kane was on the sidelines. So look, let's just take that Brighton game in isolation and hope it's an anomaly, and we'll see Son back on track and firing Tottenham. Into it.
It's worth just mentioning as well with Brighton, as we mentioned at the start of the programmes, they've only conceded, is it 1 goal now in their last 5 games, and that includes Liverpool, Leeds, Spurs, Fulham, and another team as well, and they've only conceded 2 big chances in that time as well. So it's not exactly like their goal has been peppered. The keepers have to make loads of saves. They've been defending very, very, very well, which West Brom we know can't. So I think that Son will be a different beast against West Brom for Brighton personally.
And in attack, it's funny you mentioned how you thought Tottenham would concede. I did actually have Dianga. Two assists since he come into the side. Not fully match fit, but very decent for a good 50, 60, 70 minute spurt. But when I had a look at my remaining budget with having that Burnley backline, I just thought there were some premium assets that I could look to bring in. I'll go with Callum Wilson first for the reasons we outlined. I mean, single-handedly looks as if he'll keep Newcastle in the top flight this season. You question how many goals Callum Wilson could score in a decent team who are creating a lot of chances, because it doesn't take much. One sniff against Everton, he was fairly anonymous for large parts of the game. You turn away, you blink an eye, and he's come off and he's got himself a couple. A little bit like Jamie Vardy in that respect, although offers a little bit more to Newcastle because he needs to, because we haven't got the personnel that maybe Leicester have. And then I'm captaining. The armband currently is on Marcus Rashford. That could potentially change. Look, I am toying with Manchester United players. Bruno was a captain, had the armband midweek, and he's done very well for me. I think I had Wan-Bissaka in there as well.
Nice, very nice pick.
Yeah, I went with Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, and Bruno with the 3. So that was a great start to the game week. I was partying in the Caribbean. Now I think I'll just be heading up the road to Berwick. But and look, Rashford came off. He got his little bit of a rest. He looks as if he's playing himself back in, because I've been on other platforms and other formats. Rashford has been the mainstay of my team, and I found him quite frustrating. But I'm hoping that he's being managed a little bit better by Ollie. He's sat out a couple of games. He's hopefully over his shoulder issue, his knee problem, and it's going to be. Look, it is a tough game. It's a Northwest derby. There'll be a lot of blood and guts and thunder involved. But Rashford, for the moment, is the one United player that I'm going to plumb for. And I'm looking at it as well purely from a perspective of who would I expect other managers to be picking up. The go-tos are your Wan-Bissakas, or your Brunos. So I'm going for it. Maybe, hopefully, it's a little bit of a differential in that respect.
No, that's a really nice shout. And it's funny, Rashford, because he doesn't seem like he scores a lot of goals, and sometimes he gets a bit lost on games in the wings, I think, but he does tend to just pop up, and he's such a good finisher, that he just gets the goal, doesn't he, and stuff. So I think Rashford's a good shout. So we've now got my team on screen. So I've gone a bit different. So I have gone for.
We're always David. We're always different.
We're always different. So I've gone for Ramsdale in goals for the reasons we mentioned. I've also gone for Bogle as well, because I think Bogle for Sheffield United, he's quite attacking, scored last week. And like I mentioned, I don't think that Chelsea are in full swing yet. And Sheffield United, especially at home, tend to really play well against the good team. So he's a pure budget pick. But I've gone for I'm hoping that Sheffield United strap in for their lives. Chelsea not quite at it yet. I don't think. I do fancy an opportunity there for maybe a clean sheet, or if not, a few saves off Ramsdale, potentially attacking return off Bogle, maybe. But I have gone for double Man City defence. So I think we see this game potentially a bit differently. I agree with you, right? Salah 9.9 million. I mean, absolutely crazy. But I would also say that I've watched Salah the last few games, 2 magnificent goals against West Ham. Both finishes absolutely brilliant. I just think the Man City just operating at a different level. And I think Mane's a doubt again for the weekend. When Mane plays, drags defenders away, I think, at times as well. When Salah plays, he tends to be the focal point when Mane's there. But when Mane's not there, I think Salah tends to get a bit crowded out. If you're playing players like Shaqiri, maybe Origi, Firmino even, they just don't afford the same level of threat as Salah does. And I just think he finds himself a bit crowded out. But I would also add that, Man City defensively just look absolutely fantastic. Liverpool may score, they may turn up. But I just think Man City just head and shoulders above any team in the Premier League at the moment. So a 7.8 and 7.5, I think they're kind of similar in terms of what you're looking at with Salah with the value, because those guys have been 10.8, 11 million all season. And finally, as part of a 4-3-3, I've gone for Justin for Leicester away to Wolves. Wolves did well against Arsenal. Obviously, the Reds didn't help Arsenal, but Justin, I mean, what a season he's having. A first full season in the Premier League. Everyone thought that when Pereira would be back, he'd lose his place, but I wouldn't be surprised if Justin, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. I mean, both defensive and attacking wise, Leicester playing really, really well. 7.7 again, I think it's quite cheap, which allows me to pump a few funds a bit more forward. I've then gone for a midfield 3 of Son, everything we just mentioned there. Bruno at 14.1, I don't think needs any introduction, so I've gone for Bruno, ahead of your Rashford pick. I don't think he needs any introduction. I mean, he has been a bit quieter attacking wise, maybe in the last few games, but all he needs is penalty, a free kick. His dink over the top for Martial's goal was absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, the problem with Bruno is he's been too good since he arrived.
You're right.
So when he has a slight dip or there's a slight downturn, it's panic stations, it's crisis. It's not. He still has been very good, just maybe not hitting those exceptional levels that we're being used to. But a guy capable of turning the game in a blink of an eye, and just a points monster.
Agree. And I've gone for Gundogan as well. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for Gundogan. I called him out about 5 or 6 weeks ago, just when he started playing in that more advanced role. He scored a couple of goals. I looked at his underlying stats, and I called out actually on FPL podcast. I went, I wonder if Gundogan can be a good pick, and I got a bit laughed at that point. And then obviously he's gone on and just proven to be, not only a fantastic footballer, never seems to lose the ball. Passing ability is sublime. Short passing, long passing, through balls. He's just the real linchpin in that team at the moment. On top of that, he's a really good finisher as well, as he proved with his a couple of goals against West Brom when he just collected the ball so calm, passed him in the corner. So I think Gundogan's a really good pick against Liverpool. He's on penalties, which as you mentioned earlier, is an important factor in the game season as well. If a 10.2, I think he's a good shout. I then got the 3 up front, so I've gone for Bamford. As you mentioned, Bamford and Rafinha.
Yeah,
they're pretty much of a muchness in terms of that attack. They tend to assist each other. They both tend to get points as well. I like Bamford. I know you said you don't, but I just think he's what he's managed to do this season, leading the line for Leeds, both in terms of scoring goals, creation of goals. Well, he had the 1-on-1 on the weekend towards the end of the game.
Leicester,
that was it.
Yes,
Leicester,
the King Power.
Superb, yeah.
Yeah.
I've also gone for Antonio. He just looks an absolute beast. Like how he hasn't scored more goals in his last 2 weeks. I think he's hit the post 2 or 3 times, had shots cleared off the line. I think Antonio was a really good pick in all formats. Fulham are obviously, they've been playing well. But, I think they showed this week that they're still fallible potentially at the back. So I just think Antonio's a great pick. And at the moment, my captaincy is on Callum Wilson because, of everything we kind of mentioned earlier. He's on penalties. They're good. I think Steve Bruce, as you mentioned, will hopefully tell them, take the game by the throat, go for it, and hope Southampton kind of capitulate as they did in the week. I don't, obviously mean that with the greatest respect in terms of the circumstances of the game.
No, we don't. There's no risk. No, we don't. Look, we've picked Callum Wilson for a reason. You know what? All sentiment goes out of the window, Andrew.
Absolutely. No, I think he's a great pick this week, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a couple of goals. I'm not as brave as you. I am gone for an attacking double up. Have you ever gone for an attacking double up for Newcastle? Well, so I'll say
has anybody
in the last few years?
Steve Bruce hasn't even ever went for a Newcastle attacking double up.
I think the last time I went for a attacking Newcastle double up was Alan Shearer and Faustino Asprilla. I think it was the last time, maybe. But yeah,
it's these differential punts that hopefully will bring reap the rewards. And look, this is an opportunity for us. We never know which Newcastle team's going to turn up, and Hazelhutton could just say, well, actually we haven't got the personnel, let's just dig in and let's just go with the 5-4-1, and just pack it out and make it difficult, close the space down. But hopefully not, and a couple of goals, maybe 3-1 Newcastle, with an Almiron and Wilson double up will do me.
I really like your Lingard pick. I may have to have a bit of a rethink slightly on how I can afford to get Lingard in, because I think at 8.1 million, what a great shout that is. So, but yeah, I think generally quite happy with the team. Never seen Salah or Man City at these prices before. So some really good opportunities there actually. Even Wilson at 9.5 with the fixture he's got and the form he's in, I think is really good price as well there. So yeah, interesting week, and looking forward to hopefully scooping the loot this week, like as you are this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, I take on board a lot of the things that you've said, and I am being swayed towards one way, and I think there's a general feeling in my own head at the moment that there will be a couple of multiple entries into this game week, because I will probably maybe cover that City, that go for the dominance and hope that comes home to roost. And then I might even just steam into Liverpool as well as a completely sort of different, just because of that, those price points, just and see how it is. And I think that's the good thing maybe about this format. You can get a couple of little entries in. I do like the Sheffield United pick as well in that back line. So we made, and Bogle, I have had Bogle a couple of times this season. He's got a couple of goals. So it just comes down to, will Chris Whaler start him as well? I know, but with Ender Stevens out and things like that, and a couple of others, then hopefully he's nailed for a starting berth.
So that is it from us for this episode. All the links are below for all the games we have discussed today. Don't forget, for this week, there's also that free entry to the €7,500 tournament for new FanTeam users. So head to fanteam.com to register and play that tournament for free if you're not a registered FanTeam user. Thank you so much again, Ben, for joining me this week. We'll have you on again very, very soon, I'm sure. And best of luck for the weekend. Lingard is the one I'm bringing into my team. What a pick, mate. I cannot argue with that at all. I remember that if you liked what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast, leave us 5 stars, and also leave a comment, any feedback at all. 5 stars, as Ben is saying, 5 stars. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel and available as an audio version on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast. Our website is fanteam.com, and our Twitter handles are @FanTeamOfficial and @FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of other FanTeam competitions. We'll be back very soon. Looking forward to the Game Week 24 Weekly Monster. The very best of luck for Game Week 23. Goodbye for now.